I understand, can't speak. Once upon a time, there was a young man named Leo. Leo was from a small town, and he had a big dream. His dream was to learn English. He had heard that learning English could open doors to new jobs, new friends, and new adventures. Leo loved to imagine himself speaking English fluently, meeting people from different places, and traveling the world. But Leo faced a problem. He could read English well and understand it, but he couldn't speak it. Every time he tried to talk in English, he felt nervous. Words would get stuck in his throat, and he would forget everything he wanted to say. It was as if there was a wall between his thoughts and his mouth. Leo was not alone. His best friend, Sarah, was learning English too. Like Leo, Sarah could read and understand English. She loved watching English movies and reading short stories. But when it came to speaking, she felt shy. She was scared people would laugh at her or not understand her. So she stayed quiet, even though she had so much she wanted to say. One day, Leo and Sarah decided to meet in a quiet park. They sat under a big, leafy tree and talked about their struggles with English. I understand the words, Leo said, but I can't speak them. My mouth doesn't cooperate. Sarah nodded in agreement. I feel the same, she said. It's like my brain knows the words, but my voice doesn't know how to say them. I get scared, and then I can't say anything. As they talked, a wise old man walked by. He heard their conversation and stopped. Excuse me, he said kindly. I couldn't help but overhear. I, too, struggled with learning English when I was young. Leo and Sarah looked up at him, surprised. The man smiled and sat down next to them. His name was Mr. Ollie. He had traveled to many countries and learned many languages. Mr. Ollie could speak English fluently now, but he understood their feelings very well. When I was young, I couldn't speak English either, Mr. Ollie began. I was afraid of making mistakes. I worried about my accent and my pronunciation. But then I realized something important. To speak a language, you must be brave enough to make mistakes. Leo and Sarah listened closely. But what if people laugh at us? Sarah asked quietly. Mr. Ollie shook his head. If they laugh, it's okay. Mistakes are a part of learning. The more you speak, the better you will get. You don't need perfect words. You just need to try. Mr. Ollie gave them a simple task. Every day, find one new person to speak English with. It could be a friend, a shopkeeper, or even a neighbor. Start with small sentences. Say hello or how are you? Slowly, you will feel more comfortable. Leo and Sarah decided to try Mr. Ollie's advice. They were still scared, but they trusted his words. For the next few days, they practiced. Leo spoke to his younger brother in English. He said, "Good morning and how was your day?" At first, his brother laughed, but Leo didn't mind. He remembered Mr. Ollie's advice about making mistakes. Sarah also practiced with her family. She tried to order food at a local cafe in English. She felt nervous, but she said, "I would like a coffee, please." The waitress smiled and gave her the coffee. It was a small step, but it made Sarah feel proud. After a week, Leo and Sarah met again in the park to share their experiences. They both felt a little more confident, but they knew it would take time to speak English comfortably. Mr. Ollie joined them again and listened to their stories. "You are doing well," Mr. Ollie said with a smile. Learning a language is like learning to swim. At first, you feel afraid. But if you keep practicing, you will find your rhythm. Leo and Sarah felt hopeful. They had a long journey ahead, but they were not alone. They had each other, and they had Mr. Ollie's wisdom to guide them. A few months passed. Leo and Sarah kept practicing their English, trying to speak a little more every day. They still made mistakes, and sometimes they still felt shy, but they were beginning to see progress. Slowly, they started feeling more comfortable with small conversations. One day, Mr. Ollie invited them to his house for tea. When they arrived, they found a surprise waiting for them. Mr. Ollie had invited some of his friends who were also learning English. They came from different countries, and they all spoke English with different accents. Leo and Sarah felt nervous but excited. Mr. Ollie smiled. "This is a safe place for you to practice," he said gently. "Everyone here is learning, just like you. We all understand the struggle of learning a new language." The group began talking about simple things, their favorite food, their hometowns, and what they like to do in their free time. Leo took a deep breath and said, "I like playing football with my friends." He felt his voice shake a little, but nobody laughed. Instead, a man from Japan named Hiro smiled and said, "I love football too." Sarah joined in, telling the group about her love for painting. "I paint flowers and trees," she said, searching for words. A woman from Brazil, named Maria, nodded with interest. "I paint too," she said happily. They all laughed together, feeling the warmth of connection despite their different accents and small mistakes. After the meeting, Leo and Sarah felt proud. They had spoken English with strangers, shared stories, and felt understood. They realized that speaking was not just about having perfect grammar or the right words, it was about connecting with others. Over time, Leo and Sarah continued to improve. They practiced with each other, with strangers, and with Mr. Ollie's group. They also tried new techniques that Mr. Ollie taught them. For example, they would stand in front of a mirror and talk to themselves in English. This helped them practice speaking without feeling judged. They would say simple sentences like, "Today, I am going to the market," or "Tomorrow, I will visit my friend." As they practiced, their confidence grew. Leo even started helping his younger brother with English homework. "It's strange," Leo said to Sarah one day, "but I feel like I'm learning even more when I teach someone else." Sarah nodded. She had started helping her little cousins with English too. "Teaching really helps," she agreed. "It's like we are sharing our journey with others." One day, Mr. Ollie called Leo and Sarah to meet him at the park. When they arrived, he was holding a small gift box. "This is for both of you," he said, smiling. Inside the box were 2 small notebooks with a message on the first page: "Keep speaking, keep learning, and never be afraid of mistakes." Leo and Sarah thanked Mr. Ollie. The notebooks became their journals, where they wrote down new English words and expressions they learned. Every time they felt discouraged, they would open the notebook and remember Mr. Ollie's advice. Months later, Leo and Sarah could finally hold full conversations in English. They still made mistakes now and then, but they didn't worry about it anymore. They had learned the most important lesson. Speaking a language is about trying, connecting, and learning. It's okay to stumble as long as you keep going. One day, Leo and Sarah were invited to speak at a small event in their town about their journey with English. Standing in front of the crowd, Leo took a deep breath and began. "When I started, I could understand English but couldn't speak it. I was scared of making mistakes." He looked at Sarah, who nodded with encouragement. "But now I know that mistakes are a part of learning. The more we speak, the better we become." The crowd applauded. Leo and Sarah smiled at each other, realizing how far they had come. They had started with fear, but now they had found their voices. As they walked home that evening, Sarah turned to Leo and said, "Do you remember the first time we met Mr. Ollie in the park?" "We were so nervous back then," Leo laughed. "Yes, we've come a long way, haven't we?" They both knew their journey wasn't over. There were still new words to learn and new challenges to face, but they felt ready. They understood that learning a language takes patience, courage, and a lot of practice. And with friends like Mr. Ollie and each other, they knew they would keep improving. Leo and Sarah would continue speaking English, not just with their voices, but with their hearts. They had learned that language was more than words. It was a way to connect, share, and grow.